I can tell you, I get anxiety driving in Miami. So we are one of the most dangerous states to drive in. Going into an insurance agent and you say, what's the cheapest rate I could get? Started saying to people, no conmigo con la abogado.
Welcome to Nurse Talkast. Today we have Attorney Alejandro Gonzalez from Phoenix Law Group. Let me begin with this phrase, which is, no es conmigo, es con el abogado.
Thank you for having me here. How are you?
My pleasure.
So that phrase came from clients, actually. So I've worked a lot with a lot of different clients, and a couple of years back I was on a business trip and another client that I had worked with previously was there, and he heard people talking about, oye, el abogado's en el avión, el abogado está en el avión, están hablando con el abogado. And he immediately asked, oh, do you mean Alex? And there's a lot of places, and a lot of people here that know me simply just as the attorney, because I've resolved a lot of things on a lot of different matters for people.
Yes.
So clients, I noticed, started saying to people, no es conmigo con el abogado, go talk to the lawyer, basically. And I've realized, and we use it because it's symbolic of the thought process that we have here.
Yes.
And my goal as an attorney and what my office does is provide you peace of mind. The idea is that when you hire my office, you get to sleep well. The idea is that your problems become our problems and we're here for you to pass them on. Now, a lot of clients still like to be very hands-on, but the benefit that we give the clients is essentially you turn your file over to us and you just get to not worry about it. We'll update you as the file goes. We fight with the insurance. They don't need to speak to you. No one needs to bother you about it. You just direct them to my office. And at the end of the day, when anyone comes up to you to talk about this incident or what's going on, it's the old talk to the hand.
I agree. No, that's excellent. And using this phrase is a way to make them feel like they have nothing to worry about. You are taking care of everything.
Yes.
That's the idea.
Hakuna Matata.
Yes, that's a good one. All right, attorney, I have many questions that I could ask you. And let me continue by saying, what type of law do you practice? Because it's a variety of things that you are able to do.
So at Phoenix Law Group, we focus on personal injury matters, cases where there's been negligence and someone's been injured as a result. Whether
Yes.
that's premise liability, car accidents, motorcycles, commercial vehicles such as tractors or cement trucks, garbage trucks, things like that, vocational trucks. We also do medical malpractice. I've been practicing about a little bit over 10 years. And I don't come from an exclusive personal injury background, I come from a litigation background. Where I made my bones was in federal court, arguing some of the biggest money laundering cases, healthcare fraud cases. I was at a firm where the only thing we handled were high profile cases and only litigation. One partner specialized in civil, one in criminal, so I got the benefit of both. I also got to do appeals, I got to do a wide variety of things. And throughout my career, I dealt with some catastrophic injury cases where I noticed a need, I noticed a fit for the type of work that I do and what I like to do, which is help people at the end of the day. And I'm in a situation where, I get to do what I like and I get to help people in a very tough time.
That's amazing. And you are bilingual.
Yep.
So you could help here in Miami, you can help English, Spanish. You're going to learn Portuguese, right?
Working on it, mostly Italian now.
Pouquinho.
Yeah, but yes, so most of our clients are Spanish speakers. We deal a lot with English speakers as well. So I use a wide variety of networks to kind of fill the gaps where I don't. So while I don't speak Russian, I have people that I could contact for. I've handled Russian cases before. I handle cases from a wide variety of cultures where I'm able to find someone to either serve as a translator, either a medical professional or someone on the field that could work with them.
That's excellent. All right. So I have another question for you. How could you explain the impact of an accident related to small car versus truck? I know it's a difference, huge difference.
So it's interesting. Never was a huge science person in high school. Didn't like it much. I actually had to study it. But I remember, and you kind of come back to this in personal injury, everything revolves around mass. Everything in physics revolves around mass. So acceleration, momentum, force of impact are all determined by the mass of objects. And when you look at the size comparisons between a regular four-door sedan and a truck, an 18-wheeler, or even if you compare it to what are out there a lot, which are these vocational trucks, the garbage trucks, the cement trucks, we see a lot of those cases. The weight difference in those cars is sometimes tons to hundreds of thousands of pounds in differences in size, in weight, in just the amount of size that those vehicles have. And we use
we have it here.
We have this we use with clients to explain all the time. And this is a sedan.
Yes.
You can see it, and just the size difference of these vehicles is so huge that just from when you just think about logically, the amount of distance that this takes to stop when it's moving at full speed compared to this is huge. So
Yes.
we see it sometimes where you have even a small tap. If it's a commercial vehicle, I've had commercial cases with surgeries, hernias, TBIs, where when you look at the damage to the vehicle, it's not even a dented bumper because the force of impact that gets transferred from the moment of the accident
Yes.
is so different that I tell clients it's similar to grabbing an egg, a raw egg, and if you shake it tough enough, when you crack that egg, the yolk is broken. It's all together, it's a little omelet in an egg. That's the same thing that happens to your body. That's the same thing that happens to your disc. That's the same thing that happens inside your brain when you deal with those sizes. So that's why whenever going outside of the insurance thing, which is what everyone focus on, because it's the reality. When you deal with commercial policies, you're dealing about $1 million policy at least. So you know, as a lawyer, there's a lot you could do for the client treatment-wise. You could send them a lot of places. So, but for us, it goes into, yes, now you have coverage, but the reality is, the way we look at it is, it's not a coverage situation. It's the fact that due to the difference in sizes and the mechanics of the accident, there is going to be a lot more injuries than you think there ever are. If you do a full checkup, you will find a lot more than that client ever feels in that moment. And that's what we try to make a point of when we have these cases and we're able to explain them to the client, that even if you're not feeling that bad, you need to get checked out. De pie a cabeza.
It's true.
This is the moment. Every bill will be covered. It will be handled. If it's reasonable, we need to get you checked out, because if stuff comes up later, you know, the insurance always fights you about causation.
It's true. Definitely, I agree. And there are many situations where sometimes maybe they had a car accident, which could be like a minor accident, but always it's important to go and maybe go to emergency room, have a full checkup, because you never know. Maybe a few days, I don't know, the following month, you could feel like something is going wrong and having headaches, something different, a back pain, and you don't know what is going on, but you need to have that proof, that evidence from day one of X-ray, CT scan, everything that was done, because you could use that also to compare what is the damage.
Yes, and that's why as an attorney, you also have to you have to think almost like a medical professional to an extent, because you got to intake the client very similar to an ER or a clinic intake. Because if the client doesn't present to the clinic or the hospital with the right complaints, if we're able to document it correctly, if we're able to know that, we could catch it very quickly within that 14-day period. We could correct it. We could have the clinic modify the records, make an update. We could fight with the hospital about it, or we could send him back to update it. But the issue is when you don't have that communication and when you don't know, pasa un mes, and the client all of a sudden is like, tengo unos dolor de cabeza.
It's true.
My wife is saying that I'm forgetful in the morning, and now you have nothing to show. Maybe you didn't just fall when you were home in la escalera.
Yes, that's definitely, I agree with that. I have one more question, and it's the following. I know you're an expert also in insurance, because you always explain, because that's important information. Some people maybe say, oh, I have a car insurance, but what type of insurance? Will that cover what you need? So, and the question is the following, attorney. How many days after the car accident are you still legally protected by the PIP or able to make a claim?
So right now, my understanding is it's 14 days. So you have 14 days from the date of the accident to be seen and start that PIP claim. However, if we have cases sometimes where they don't get seen within 14 days, all you lose is the protection for PIP. Then we have to do LOPs. We have to see if the case very merits it. But the way I explain it to clients and the conversation I have with clients is the 14 days is a deadline that should not be anything that we look at, because you should be treating and you should be evaluated way before the 14 days. Because even if you wait to day 14, the insurance will complain. The insurance will find it weird. Now, I am not a huge proponent of emergency care unless you need emergency care. If you have a fracture, if you're bleeding on the scene, if you have a concussion, if you feel bad, you get checked out at the scene and you go to the hospital if it's necessary. But in my experience, I prefer to use reputable clinics that have a lot of in-house networks that deal with these type of cases constantly, that know what to look for. Because you go to the ER a lot of times, and unless it's a fracture, you're not looking at hernias. You're not looking at brain imaging and things like that. So we try to make sure that the client gets the emergent care that they need, but that they get the right care that actually fits them. And then going into the insurance thing, it's the biggest, it's such a huge point that I focus on in the videos and what we do, because at the end of the day, in PI cases, in personal injury cases, there's not a lot of control that the client has. You could control your treatment, you can make sure you're compliant, you could listen to your lawyer, but whether there's insurance, whether there's coverage, and whether there's liability does not depend on you. So the only thing that you can ever do as a client to make sure that you have the coverage that you will need is to have the right insurance your own self. And it's what we say a lot in Spanish, lo barato sale caro.
Exactly.
And a lot of times clients will go with the cheapest insurance and then complain when there's no insurance beyond the minimum PIP requirement to do anything.
It's true. It's true. Definitely, I agree. And there are situations where sometimes they find out and it's too late, unfortunately. All right. The following question is this. Why do you think that Florida is the third state in USA with more death related to car accidents? Why?
I can tell you, I get anxiety driving in Miami.
It's true.
I think it's a lot of things. I think the weather down here plays a part. I think you have sudden changes in weather that people aren't used to. We have very wet driving conditions. Even though you have good visibility at a lot of times, I think the weather plays a huge part. I've seen statistics throughout my practice that Florida is actually one of the highest instances of fatalities in pedestrians because of the amount of pedestrians that there are out there. The amount, I think the congestion of people and in these urban areas, like you see Brickell, you spend an hour and a half to get out of Brickell if it's the wrong time. 5 blocks, 5 cuadras, 1 hora y media ahí trabajo in traffic. And I think when you combine those things with the fact that you get a lot of tourist drivers here, a lot of drivers that aren't used to driving in Florida, which, I mean, Southern Florida is about as aggressive driving as you're going to get in the United States. It's comparable to Latin American countries, to Europe and things like that. But you go up north and people let you pass at a stop sign, and if you put a blinker on, people let you change into the lane. Here, you have to put the blinker to the left if you want to go to the right, and it takes a lot, I think, to drive here that people underestimate. That I also think when you combine with the partying, the drinking, we have a ton of drunk driving here. A ton of pedestrian accidents. We handle, actually, unfortunately, a lot of pedestrian deaths in this office that we've had due to faulty lighting, faulty bad weather conditions, people being drunk. And I think just when you combine everything in Florida, it just leads to the bad situation that we have, that Florida's a very, very bad driving state. And then you see those statistics and you see those numbers, and it really makes you wonder why we have a lot of the rules, a lot of the laws we have for accidents when we are such a high risk accident state.
All right, I have another question, and it's the following. How do you explain to your clients the financial benefits they will receive in their cases? Because maybe they will say, oh, I had a car accident, I should receive this amount as a final result, but what are the steps that you need to calculate? You need to identify what was the damage, causation, all of that, to come up with a calculation that could be an estimate, because never is the final. You cannot promise. That's the truth.
Yes. Every insurance, every case is different, and there's a formula that we use as guidelines and stuff, but there's no real black and white. It's because at the end of the day, the way I explain this to at least the adjusters and clients is, it's what you could get a jury to give you. And I've done enough trials and enough types of cases to know that the jury will do what you don't ever think the jury will do. You could have the best case and you could lose. You could have the worst case and lose. I've seen it. It happens because juries are people and they go off the psychology. I've seen juries kill a case because they didn't like a witness who wasn't even an important witness. It was just a character witness and they didn't like him. Yeah. So, that's the part of the law. Going into the financials, there's two things that clients really focus on that I've always found interesting. The first one, and the one that they focus on the most, is the one that really always surprises me. It's the property damage. People could be missing an arm, and their question is, how do I fix my car? Yes. But then the second thing is exactly what you're talking about. How much is my case worth? What am I going to get? And people want to know that right from the beginning, because a lot of people want to make the decision of whether or not I do a lawsuit or a claim, if it's worth it, because they have the fear my insurance is going to go up, I'm going to be affected, so tiene que hacer sentido para ello.
Yes.
And it's a very tough conversation to have with clients, and you got to be very, very delicate in how you handle it. But for me, the way I explain to my clients is, you didn't hit the lottery. This isn't you got in an accident and we all of a sudden are going to get a lottery ticket. This isn't what happens. An accident is not a windfall. An accident does not mean that now you get to go on vacation and buy a house. What an accident means and what accident law basically means is the money that you are going to get is tied to your medical bills and your future medical care and the effect this accident had on your life.
Yes.
If it broke your iPhone and I could prove it broke your iPhone, I'll replace your iPhone. If it broke your leg, I will calculate the cost of the surgery to fix your leg, but then I'll also calculate how many future medical visits you'll need, if you're going to need orthotics, if you'll need a walking boot in the future, if your arthritis will accelerate, if you have an aggravation. I look at all these things and I'll calculate the life expectancy you have and all these crazy formulas that we use to get to a number of what this person more or less needs to treat. But it's a number.
Exactly.
It's estimates. Medical bills are higher than they usually are, and everyone in the industry knows this. There's a lot of nuances to the industry that everyone knows. The adjusters on one side, the lawyers on the others, the clients, the clinics. So there's a lot to it that makes it almost impossible to give a real dollar figure. What I tell clients at the end of the day is, I can get you all the money in the world, but you are going to be messed up. If I am getting you millions of dollars, you are bad. Your health is affected.
Yes.
Unfortunately and fortunately, if I call you and tell you I got you X amount and there's more in the policy, at the end of the day, it's because your health is good. And no hay un kilo que te pueda reemplazar tu salud. So while it's not what you want to hear from the lawyer, because everyone out there thinks that, oh my God, I got hit in a car, now me saqué la lotería. You know, the reality is it's a trade-off. The more healthy you are, the less you will likely make. The more injured you are, the more you are affected. You know, those $1 million cases that people hear about are people that can't remember the same way. That all of a sudden, they can't contribute to their daily lives the same way. They can't even cook around the house. They can't help pick up the kids. They're not the same person. They can't remember what they did a week ago because the memories aren't forming. It's not, I'm going on a vacation, I'm going on a party. Yes. Are we good at what we do, and do we get our clients a good amount of compensation? Yes. Are there clients that go out and go buy houses, invest in businesses? Yes. I'm here to help the clients go forward and get the best result they can. But the reality that most need to understand is this is not a lottery ticket.
It's true.
This is a trade-off. And the more money I get you, the worse you are physically and mentally.
No, I definitely agree. Sometimes could be a car accident or some other situations where there is a catastrophic case. You have to involve many people in the case because you need an economics to calculate what is the dollar value now and maybe 20 years from now. Maybe you will need future surgeries. Maybe your ADL, which is activity of daily living, is affected. You need to be having so much, you need to customize your life to a person that maybe could be paraplegic, not able to walk, not able to have a normal life. So that money is also going to your medical needs, which is the truth. All right. How often do you have cases related to traumatic brain injury, and how difficult is to prove it?
So I guess based on my background and my own personal beliefs, I think in this firm we focus very heavily on the mental side of things, on the neurological aspect of it from a physiological standpoint, but also the mental health side from anxiety and PTSD.
Yes.
The reality is it's extremely high percentage of car accident cases involve PTSD. I know from my own experience, I've had few car accidents in my life, but when I was in high school, it's over 18 years ago.
Okay.
I remember an accident when I was in high school driving by Bird by the Denny's that I still remember it vividly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that bad. I changed lanes. It was dark. I didn't see the car. Just hit me on the side. High impact, but no one was hurt. Nothing bad. The panels got impacted. That was it. Mm-hmm. I still remember the person. I still remember the accident. Every time I go to change lanes, I still have a millisecond of hesitation. And it wasn't that bad. So I know and I understand the traumatic effect that these accidents can have, especially when you're not prepared for them, when they sideswipe you, when they come out of nowhere, when they're unexpected, especially the treatment side of it, the lack of control that you get over your life, how frustrating it could be, how debilitating it could be, how how emasculating for a man or opposite for a female could be, because you lose control of your life. You all of a sudden you have to go to treatment, you have to go where people tell you to go, you have restrictions, you have what you can't do, what you can do. You have a lawyer probably telling you, hey, the insurance is going to be watching you, be careful what you post, be careful what you do. And it causes a lot of anxiety and stress in people just from the mental health standpoint. So we always recommend to be seen by a mental health professional to first get diagnosed for anxiety, PTSD, and things like that, and to get treated if you have it. As far as the TBIs, we also like to work with neuros a lot. The way I learned it is every case is a TBI until proven otherwise.
True.
The statistics are there where about almost 20% of car accident cases result in TBIs, less than falls, but still, you see them a lot in premise cases. So you have to look for them. You have to be able to identify them. You have to speak to the client and the family to get a baseline of where they are. We do that with our questionnaire and our follow-ups with the client to get an idea, so that as the lawyer, a lot of times you're the one catching the symptomology of the TBI more than the client is. A lot of times we're the ones that identify. And, you know, we've had clients that have gone in and seen not big accidents, and all of a sudden you have evidence of shearing. You have evidence of a TBI, a mild TBI, and now all of a sudden we can explain why the client has short-term memory loss, why the client is so anxious, why the client is having these problems where the client's been telling us for months, I don't feel like myself. And now we could actually show it to the insurance. If you don't do that, and you wait a lot of time and you send them to a neuro a year after, you could get the results of the TBI, but you're also going to have the insurance telling you he plays flag football on the weekend. He loves to go skydiving. He does whatever he does. It could be caused just as easily by it. So the closer you do it in relation to the accident, and that you focus on it and look for it because it's present a lot and it's easy to miss, it's crucial in these type of cases, and it's a huge focus of what we do.
No, definitely. I agree. And that's one of the reasons why we recommend for them, when after a car accident, to go to emergency room, because that way they can have like a baseline diagnostic test and have at least an idea how was the brain, if you can at least use that as an evidence. Because sometimes maybe someone could say, oh, I feel okay, but then later on they begin, oh, I have headache, I feel that I cannot focus the job that I'm supposed to do. So even their daily life is affected as well. And the problem is, how do you prove it? Because you could say many things. You could say, okay, let's do this test, the other test, but you also, per se, you will have a neuropsychologist to have that evaluation, to give us the recommendations as well, because you could have a case and you can go to court and you could say, okay, I have this type of test that I did, that's proof that I have, but what about if they tell you, oh, wait a minute, that's not allowed in court. So what do you do?
Oh, TBI,
that could happen
TBIs
as well.
Are super contentious. I mean, they're very heavily litigated because they're opinion decisions a lot of times, unless you have that documented evidence of, you know, the signs of a TBI, and even then you got to prove causation. It's insurances will fight you tooth and nail on it because they know it's such a hard concept for a jury to really wrap their heads around. You know, but we've been successful dumbing it down for the jury, really getting them to understand. And where we've seen a lot of positive markers as far as identifying TBIs has not even been with the clients, it's been with the family members. They're usually the first ones to kind of give us a hint as, you know, he's being really angry in the mornings. His mood swings are a lot bigger. You know, he's having trouble concentrating because a lot of time the client, you know, even though we tell them, tell me everything, and I try to call clients on a rotating 2-week basis kind of, and touch base with all of them and see where they're at in their treatment and how they feel about the case. A lot of times they hold stuff back. If you ask a client how you feel, they'll tell you what they feel the worst about. My finger hurt. I broke my finger, that's what hurts. But not this and not this and not that. And as the lawyers, we need to know everything, because what I tell clients is whatever we don't put on the table and whatever we don't move forward with, it's gone. If all of a sudden you start having back pains and it's too late, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yes, no, definitely. All right, so I have another question, and is, could you explain how a bodily injury insurance coverage is designed? Because I know there is also what is called PIP no fault, also the 1020. Can you explain a little more about it, please?
So PIP is personal injury protection, which is part of the reason that Florida is called a no-fault state. And what it is, it's an insurance that you have for your own coverage, and it's designed to protect It's designed to pay your own medical bills and lost wages caused by an accident. And the reason that they call it a no-fault state is because accidents are highly litigious, even
Yes.
nowadays with these type of rules. So if someone got into a car accident, and let's say you have these two people, the Toyota rear ends the truck, right? So the truck has a claim against the Toyota. The owner of the truck goes to a clinic and gets seen, but the clinic doesn't know who to bill because the truck owner is saying that the other sedan caused the accident. But if the insurances aren't accepting liability, the reality is you got to wait at least 30 days for them to do their investigation to figure out who's going to cover your medical bills, what they're going to pay, and what's going to be included. So to avoid those delays, to streamline the processes, they basically say it doesn't matter who's at fault, your
Okay.
insurance is the one that responds as the priority. Then what happens, you get into subrogation where the insurances will then fight amongst each other for who's responsible. They'll get repaid some money. They could go after the at-fault driver.
Yes.
That all happens on the back end, but it's designed so that your insurance responds, and it's the one that you have to make a claim to no matter what. And it's what causes a lot of issues with clients
Yes.
that no quiero tocar mi seguro. I don't want to affect my insurance. I'm not at fault. We shouldn't touch my insurance. But Florida's designed in a way where you really don't have an option. Unless you're going to be personally responsible for your medical bills and lost wages, which is a big risk, you don't have coverage except for PIP. And then you get into BI, which is the bodily injury portion,
Yes.
which is what we focus on. And that is a coverage that, let's say, a driver has to protect third parties, so other people, for the injuries and the damages that you could cause by your own negligence. What it also does is it ensures that you have legal counsel. So if you cause an accident and you get sued for it, your insurance comes in and defends you under that BI policy. It'll pay out to the other side under that BI policy. And it's where the lawyers, when we make a claim, we seek that pain and suffering, that compensation. The demand comes from the bodily injury
Yes.
coverage. And then you get into the 1020, which what here 1020 is, it's the minimum requirement for PIP, for personal injury protection. So everyone in Florida that drives it or owns a vehicle is required by law to have a minimum of 10,000 per person, 20,000 per occurrence,
Okay.
which means if you have two people in the car, they get 10,000 each, up to 20. But if you have four people in the car, they split the 20 based on how hurt each one is in amount, which usually they just split it in four.
Okay, no, excellent explanation, because sometimes, and that's very general, someone calls, I want to have insurance for my car, they do not know the details, they will not explain the details, because sometimes if the person doesn't ask, the other will not say, you know how is it? So sometimes they have insurance, but they don't know what exactly is covering, unfortunately.
They have, a lot of times they go in and I mean, I've done it when I was younger too and everything. You go into an insurance agent and you say, what's the cheapest rate I could get?
Exactly.
And then they give you a rate and you tell them cheaper. And then they give you a rate and you're like cheaper. And the only thing that happens is you leave with a policy that only has PIP. It has a 1020, which you're never even going to use because you don't want to make a claim against that insurance.
Yes.
But you don't have collision, you don't have comprehensive, you don't have BI, you don't have UM. So what you have and what you're paying for that policy, in my opinion, is worthless. You have to have insurance under Florida law, so I can't tell you don't have insurance. But it's absolute worthless because you'll never use it, you'll never do anything with it. You're going to pay for it, and then when you call me and we have a conversation, you'll be upset that you paid for that insurance for so long.
It's true. All right. I have another question. And what happens when you receive a phone call from a client and that person who caused the car accident doesn't have insurance, the bodily injury coverage? How do you handle those cases?
Honestly, it's the toughest part of what I do. I care about my clients. I do this because I want to help. Yes, there's a financial aspect to this, but I'm in a situation with a business where it's okay. But that is the toughest part of what I do. It's something where it never gets easier. I don't care who tells you. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It doesn't. Every call is a nightmare, and it's one of the toughest things we do because I have to call someone who's injured, who has medical bills, who's going to need help, and tell them there isn't insurance in this case. Oh, what do you mean? They just hit me. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we could do. They're not investors. They don't have properties in their name beyond homestead, and they don't have coverage. How can that be? Florida is the only state that has no requirement for bodily injury. So we are one of the most dangerous states to drive in every statistic. Drunk driving, pedestrians, fatalities, almost across the board. Hit and runs, we're one of the highest, but we're the only legislature in the whole United States that says you don't have to have insurance to cover what you do to third parties. It's crazy. And they blame the lawyers and they say that it's to keep the claims from being so high and to keep insurance from being so high, but they keep limiting what you could do, but insurance rates keep going up. So I'll let people make their own decisions there. I have a belief about insurance and how they work, which is a little bit different, you know. But at the end of the day, as tough as that conversation is, it brings us back to the conversation about educating clients on insurance. It's why it's so important that you have the right insurance, because Florida, about 20 to 25% of people out there do not have bodily injury. They're not required to. That means 1 in 4 accidents is not going to have insurance. But you could buy UM. You could buy uninsured or underinsured motorists. It's expensive. But if I tell you, you could go into a casino right now and you have a 1 in 4 shot of hitting blackjack, people buy insurance.
Yes.
People basically say it's a 1 in 4 chance, it's high. But very few people do it driving. And if you have UM, that's the only way that you ever avoid that conversation, because if there isn't insurance coverage on the other side, or if there isn't enough, your insurance will then come in up to the limits of your UM policy and act as that third party insurance. So you will have coverage. The idea, again, you will not become a millionaire off of this, but your medical bills and your treatment will be covered. And that's very important.
Excellent. Excellent explanation, because this is information that not everybody understands, but it's very important. All right, let's go to the next question. And it's the following, because you also take care of how do you protect legally the artists and singers, all the people that is not only Miami, but it's nationwide, right?
Yes.
That you do? All right, so basically the question is, how do you protect your brand, logo in business, and to create it's like a legal shield, that's the way we call it.
So the most important thing you could do is trademark. So whenever you have an idea, depending on the type of ideas, you could either copyright it if it's, let's say, a written work, a movie, music, things like that, or you could trademark concepts such as slogans, logos. I'm a big believer in trademarking just because I think it gives you a lot of control.
Yes.
Whether you decide to really lean heavily into it or not, there's nothing worse than, and I'll give you the Miami example that I know of, is the owners of La Carreta were the ones that actually had the idea, is my understanding, of La Ventanita.
Okay.
And then they saw it, but it wasn't trademarked, and then they used it and they actually popularized it. There's nothing you could do in that scenario. You can't protect it if you haven't trademarked the idea. However, if you've trademarked the idea, you can prevent anyone else from using it without your permission. It also gives you another revenue stream. You can license it. And there's a lot of money in licensing deals nowadays. You see it everywhere. People lending their name to something, they're not even related with the business, with the hotel, with the development, but it adds a lot of value to it because there's a lot of goodwill to the name. And there's a lot of financial value there. So trademarking is the number one thing you could do. Talk to a lawyer that has experience, understand what you want to do, if it could be trademarked, if someone else has been using it or not, and then just kind of go from there and protect your ideas so that you make sure that you have creative control over them.
No, definitely, I agree, because they will say, oh, that's never going to happen to me, but it's good to be protected. That's the most important. All right, and this is going to be the last question. I have many questions that I could ask, but let's do the last one. In the future, we can also have some other interviews as well, okay? All right, it's the following. How, you have done many cases, but do you have any case in particular that you still remember, and that's a very unique case that you will never forget?
So there's been different types of cases have led to different things. Over about 10 years, I've had about pretty unique cases in almost every type of practice area. You know, I've done an appeal where I've gotten a sentence reduced by about 11 years on a prosecutorial misconduct. I've been involved in some very big federal cases. As far as the accident cases, for me, they're all equally important, regardless of the money, the compensation, because I focus on getting the client to get about as healthy as they can to 100%. Yes. Where the ones that really stick out to me are the ones not just the good results, but where we've caught something. So one of the cases that actually sticks out the most to me from my practice, it's a case where we didn't even make a penny on, where we weren't able to move forward with the claim or anything. I had a client that had a slip and fall at a casino. We started doing the claim. I explained to her the way I look at things. I explained to her how we talked about basically the importance of being diagnosed and treated fully. So this lady started treating, she started seeing, as we're talking, me and her were during one of our follow-ups, she tells me she's starting to have these headaches, these pains, these things, you know, and I tell her, let's go set you up with a neuro. She didn't really want to go, it wasn't important, it was a small claim, nothing crazy, related to a fracture and a leg, so it wasn't anything related. She took my advice, she went to get checked, and they found a tumor. They found a very large tumor which they were able to surgically remove. She was in remission. She's been perfectly fine since then. She actually decided not to move forward with the case, called my office and fired us. We ended on good terms though. But that's one of the ones that sticks out to me the most, and I constantly remember it, not because of the result that we had, but the effect that we had on that client's life.
Incidental finding.
You know, because of the conversations we had with the client, because of the way we were handling the case, you know, we were able to, I think, save someone's life. And at the end of the day, regardless, the money's nice and all that stuff is nice. But for me, what really, really sticks out to me are those results. The things where I'm able to actually make a difference in the client's life, those are the ones that stick out to me.
That's amazing. And maybe this interview, we will have many people watching this interview, they will have a question, how am I able to contact the attorney? So could you please explain how they can find you or contact you?
So in Florida, throughout Florida, 1-800-INJURIES is our toll-free number. That's 1-800-INJURIES. And then for me, I make myself available to everyone. My personal social media is handled by me.
Yes.
I respond to all the messages that I get on there. So if you follow me on social media, if you see my videos, just feel free to shoot me a message there about any questions you have, or just feel free to contact our office. I believe we'll also be adding a WhatsApp number to the profile that clients will and new clients will also just be able to send in their questions there. But what I tell people is just reach out to me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a usted.
Ha sido un placer que pueda estar en esta entrevista y podemos así educar a todas las personas, and everybody could have more information, because every information that we add, every question that maybe we're asking, that's something that maybe they were at home, oh, I had that question, I'm glad I'm finding the answers. So it's very important.
It's what we're here to do, is educate the clients at the end of the day, because the more educated they are, the easier everything becomes. They don't make mistakes, they do things the right way, they know where to go, they know not what to do. And at the end of the day, it also leads to, you know, the reality is, statistically, if you've had an accident, you may have another one.
It's true.
Car accidents are not, you may go your whole life not having one, and you may have one and then one the next month and the next month, and it happens. So if I'm able to educate you now, at least, you'll be better prepared in the future as well. You'll have the right coverages, you'll know what's going on, and you'll know what steps to take.
Excellent, excellent. All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you. Done?
What?
Okay.
Gracias.
I still get nervous.
No, me too. Yo until the moment I open my mouth in court, yo tengo los nervios disparados y llevo parándome en corte por 10 años casi diario.